What brought you to coaching?
Oh, I don't know.
Here we go. A couple of old men trying to figure out technology. That's
There we go.
Thank you. How did I get into coaching?
Yeah.
You want? Should I
Give the actual.
tone it up or actually say why I actually was
Do
a
it.
coach? Well, I was. I swam. I was on the national team, so I was a swimmer. And then I decided, okay, when I was coming up, back in the day, it was kind of early 20s. Well, you're done, son. Now it's time to get a job. So, I got a teaching degree, and I was all set to be a teacher. And then I didn't like teaching very much. And so, I went back and looked at coaching, and somebody, Jay Haneke at Ottawa Kingfish said, would you want to come and help coach with me? Because he was a firefighter and he couldn't be at all the practices, so I would help him out with his team, and it sort of started from there. And eventually did do some teaching, but, started coaching there. That was 1979, started coaching. So I've been sort of in it since then. It's been a lot of fun. The pension in teaching is probably a little bit better, but coaching, you're sort of doing it yourself, right? Especially in a small team, you're kind of the guy, right? Or the woman. And it was a lot of fun.
Good afternoon. I'm Alan, and Stuart, just let me go for a bit here.
Yeah, go.
Yeah.
Go.
Why did I get into coaching, or how did I get into coaching? Well, I guess it started when I got into swimming. It started long before that. In grade 4, my grade 4 teacher told me that I was going to become a teacher. When I was in grade 9, I decided I'd swim for the high school. So in grade 9 and 10, I swam for the high school. So we'd train 1 hour a week, and we'd have a couple swim meets through the year. Then the coach of the Guelph Marlins saw me and thought I should come out and try out for the team. So I did. Ended up, I won provincials that year. And in the meantime, that was the year before I started swimming for Clifford. So Clifford Barry was my coach for my second year, and so on. And him and I were both in Vancouver for 1 year, and then we came back to row. And so I was swimming in row, and Clifford asked me to teach Mike West how to do better backstroke turns. So I was doing some coaching. It was just volunteer. I'd just get out of the pool during my workout and work with somebody else in the group. And as you know, Mike went on to win to medal at the Olympic Games. And so, I take credit for that. Anyway, and then Clifford asked me to coach the Masters, so I was swimming and coaching Masters. And then the next year, he asked me to. He wanted to replace his assistant, so he asked me if I would take his assistant coach. And so I did that, and that's how I got into coaching. I just sort of slid into it over time.
Great.
So my swimming, I swam for Tomac. And then when I did my I'm going to quit, then my coach, who was Bill Barton, who coached right up until a couple of years ago, but he still has his hand in swimming, he was like, you can't just leave the sport. You need to come back in. You need to coach for me part-time, do something, and kind of just transition out of the pool. So I transitioned from swimming to coaching. Life got in the way, came back to coaching.
So like these three, I swam as well. Finished club swimming in Ottawa, and then I went to U of T and swam for Byron and with Linda from 1980 to 1985, and with Ron actually, 1983-84. We were teammates as Ron got his teaching degree at U of T. And then the degree I got was in political science. Yep. so obviously didn't really have a clue what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. So kind of, mucked around for a year, 85, 86, couple of different kinds of jobs. And then there was a magazine called Swim Magazine that was around back then. Great publication, critical to the development of swimming in Canada. And they always advertised coaching jobs. And so I was leafing through one of these swim magazines. I had a great experience at U of T, fortunate to swim for Byron, as you all know, one of the most passionate coaches in the world. I remember Byron saying at Whistler a couple of years ago when he and Linda were giving a presentation on Kylie Moss, Monday's my favorite day of the week. I get to get up and go to the pool and coach. And I thought that just sums up Byron to a T. So anyway, that passion I was fortunate to be exposed to for five years. As I say, graduated, didn't really know what I wanted to do, looking at Swim Magazine, saw some jobs posted. One was for an assistant coach with the Cobra Swim Club. The head coach was a guy named Gary McElroy. So I interviewed with Gary, and another job that I applied for was as the head coach of a club, a small club in southwestern Ontario, the Tilsonburg Aquatic Torpedoes, and they had never been a year-round club. They had made the decision, the board of the club had made the decision they were going to become a year-round swim club. They'd only up to that point swum through till March or whatever it was. So anyway, so I applied for those two jobs and I went back and forth, and ultimately decided I would try my hand, baptism by fire, a head coach of a small club rather than an assistant coach at a bigger club working for somebody who would be my mentor. So yeah, I was there for 6 years, 1986 to 92, and then London from then on.
So Andrew, I'll stay with you. So one of the things when you sort of amass a coaching career of 30 plus years to 40 plus years with our two other panelists here, you see a lot of changes. Like you see things are different now than they were in 1992 when you went to LAC, and I'm wondering if maybe you can highlight a few of the changes that you saw in athletes over your time through the 30 plus years of coaching.
Changes in athletes.
Yeah.
Quite honestly, I don't think there have been that many changes other than the obvious one we're all dealing with is the whole social media world we live in now, right? I mean, back in 1986, I don't even know when social media became a thing, but I would say that is something that we have all had to learn how to work with and deal with our athletes as they use social media as much as they do. So, but in terms of the swimmers and their training habits and their mental approach to swimming. There were swimmers I coached in my first year in 1986 that had all the same skills that the swimmers I coached last year in 2022 had, and just sure the circumstances are different from one year to the next, but I think I've been really fortunate. For 36 years, I got to work with very, very special young men and young women, and I feel blessed to have had a career in coaching to work with such special people.
That's great. Cathy, I'm wondering, you've transitioned now out of club coaching, and I wondered much those changes you saw over time, but that board interaction and what you saw working with boards that may have differed from the first 10 to 15, 20 years of your career.
Well, I will say coaching for university is delightful not to deal with parents and boards. So transition that way if you can. Even when I was a swimmer and my mother would be involved with certain things and components, and at that time it seemed like there wasn't as much, let me go in a different direction, try and keep it good. There's a little more freedom for a coach to coach years gone by. And I know in years gone by, parents, even my parent, if the coach gave a punishment to us with, you're going for 1500s, negative split and descend, and you're not getting out of the pool, or you're out for the week, and those kinds of things. And my mother would say, well, what did you guys do? Now you move forward many, many years, and it's never accountability from the parent side, and even the boards going through on that, it's they're volunteers, and it's thrown at you a lot nowadays that they're volunteers and they're the ones that are, you know, putting all this extra time in for you instead of relying on what the coach has to say in their profession. So as coaches, we're the educated ones. We can offer up education to the board of what happens on the coaching side. And sometimes we stay quiet because we have boards that are kind of like the parent is now. Their only vested interest is what's in it for their swimmer, not for the club as a whole. Mind you, there are some boards who are phenomenal and they still work and operate in that way. And through conversations with other coaches, you hear coaches saying, my board is great, because they know their place of operating from the business perspective. They don't necessarily interfere with the coaching side of things. Then you get your nightmare, extreme opposite end, where you have your boards who are trying to infuse everything they have into a coaching decision, group placements, how it's going to be, what meets you go to. So freedom in years gone by, a little bit of maneuvering through with years of present.
Mm-hmm. Right. Alan, you've seen many a swim parent, as we all have, right? And I'm not sure if most people in this room know, but, there's always the story that, and, Alan reminded me of it earlier, of him coaching 48 swimmers in a 6-lane pool for a good number of his coaching career in Newmarket. And with those 48 swimmers comes 48 to 96 parents, in a year, and managing those relationships. And I'm wondering whether you talk a bit about the impact of a parent on a coach.
Well, I would say, first of all, I did have 48 swimmers in my group. We had only 2 workouts a week that were in a 6-lane pool. What I ended up having to do was start 4 at one end in each lane and 4 at the other end in each lane, and we would do 25s or 50s all night long. So that was just two times a week. The other workouts were in 8-lane pools. Actually, I guess I'm wrong with that. I had a morning workout as well. But anyway, parents can have a positive or a negative impact on coaches. I had a parent that would meet me after every evening workout, stop me in the hall and say, I am your biggest supporter. And it went on day after day, week after week, month after month. And I was like, oh my God, I got to watch out for this one, which in the end happened. I became very evil at one touch of the wall at Olympic trials. Anyway, so that can make, that person made me wary of anything that parents would say to me, because I knew it was only true as long as that swimmer did really well. And Stuart mentioned, I may be the only one on the panel that's actually retired. I haven't been to a workout since, I guess it was March the 13th, 2020, when everything got shut down. So that was the last pool workout I was at. But in retiring, I had a parent say to me, you've damaged my family by leaving, when I announced my retirement. That would hit me kind of hard, because this was a good swimmer. They were doing really, really well, breaking club records, et cetera, et cetera. And this parent looked me straight in the eye and said, you've hurt my family. There was another board member on the club. Well, I set up my group that if you were not a new swimmer to the club and you were 15 in high school, 15 years old, you moved into my group. And so when I had that 48 swimmers, I had that year I had Lindsay make the Olympic team. I had Matthew come second at the Junior World Championships. And I had a boy in my group that could not break 3 minutes for 200 freestyle. And so that was a huge, huge challenge. And I had worked, because I set it up that way, and I went to everybody's swim meets. I went to all the regional swim meets, all the provincial swim meets, and higher level swim meets. And so there were many, many years that I worked over, well, more than 300, some years more than 320 days in a year. And I would get home from an overseas meet and go, okay, next year starts next week. And burnout factor was really very, very high. And so I had in my contract that I had so many weeks of vacation. And I had not taken these weeks of vacation, and I was building them. And at one point in time, our human resources person came to me and said, if you take your vacation, you'll get 2 years off right now. And so I said, he said, I think you should only be able to go back 2 years. And I was loving coaching, and I went, okay, fine. I'll only go back 2 years. So in February, 2 days after Family Day Monday, I went to the board meeting and I announced my retirement, said I would finish out the year. I didn't know that 1 month later we were going to get shut down with COVID. But anyway, I left the meeting. Everybody was absolutely shocked. There were jaws hit the table, etc. But I left the meeting and everybody, I think, was okay with it. And I later went to the president and said, this year I'm going to take my vacation. So I'm going to be finished right around the end of June. COVID had already shut down all the pools and everything. I didn't sign up to be a personal trainer. I signed up to be a swim coach. And so I went to him and said, I'm going to take my vacation time this year. I ended up actually coaching through to about the middle of July. So I didn't take my entire vacation even in my last year. But this person proceeded to tell me how disappointed he was in me. And I'm like, wow. I didn't say this, but I'm like, holy fuck. What are you talking about? And because I put my life into the club. I put everything I did, I put into the club. My wife worked for the club as the office manager for 20 plus years. My boys both swam for the club. Like, it was a whole family thing. And he tells me he's disappointed in me because I want to take my contractual vacation time. Anyway, parents can really get to you.
I guess.
That's the bumper sticker, right? Parents can really get to you. Ron, you've been in a situation in Cambridge where you've sort of been there a long time. Both your boys swam for the club, and now Trevor's the new head coach and changing everything that you did for 36 years, and
Which is a good thing.
yeah. I wondered if maybe you could. We had some discussion this morning about the impact that the swimming world or the sport world can have on your family life, and I wondered maybe if you can talk a bit about that aspect, right? How did you balance the family piece in your coaching career?
Yeah, it's the simple thing to say is it's not easy. It's not a normal job, and you're never done. That's the problem. It's like being a dairy farmer, right? Every day you got to get up and do it again, and you never do it well enough. You never feel like you've done it enough to make it go, okay, that was a great day. I couldn't have done any better. Because there's always something to do, right? You never do everything right with all the kids that you have. So it's a difficult job if you're a person that overthinks things. And luckily, I don't. So I was lucky. I just go, probably should be doing more things, but whatever, I'll go and play with my kids. That sort of was my attitude. I don't know how you do this job without making it, like Al said, like a family thing. I can't imagine, making it work any other way. So yeah, my kids, they swam. They weren't great swimmers, but they were way better at other sports. Like my one son was an shot putter of all things, and Trevor was better at baseball, 5 times better at baseball than he was at swimming. But we always felt, just even talking to other families about bringing their kids into swimming, it's a great step-off sport. Even if you're not a great swimmer, it's awesome. The discipline, the humbleness, I think that swimmers teach each other is a great thing to pass on to a kid when they go on to another sport. And I've had some of my most successful athletes have been not swimmers. I had a kid come to me, he said, hey, Ron, I got a scholarship. 4 years at University of Hawaii, and I'm going, the file cards are turning. Like the kid was, borderline kind of age group swimmer. I go, yeah, that's great. I mean, he goes, yeah, it's in golf. Oh, okay, well that makes sense because it sure wouldn't be in swimming. So I had some kids like that were successful. I just, just pumped my own tires here a little bit. I had a girl just come to me and say, can you do my med school application stuff? And if any of you have done the new med school application, it's, you actually have to do some work to get it done. And we've had lots of kids go through and become doctors, and they come back to you. I at one point I was at Cambridge Memorial Hospital, because look at me, I'm an old guy, so I'm going to be there a lot. And I'm just sort of moping around the hall, and somebody screamed and came at me and hugged me from behind and say, Ron, it's Sheila. And she goes, it's Sheila. And I looked around, it's one of my old swimmers. She's a doctor there. And she goes, it's me. I didn't really recognize her at first. She goes, it's Sheila. Okay, so, just things like that are kind of fun. Not so much the swimming side, but just the life kind of stuff. So, I mean, just family, I guess, I just think not just my family, but just to sell the sport to families in general. I think swimming, just the accountability of, you've got to go in and you've got to swim and you've got to fit yourself into a group of people that it's a semi-contact sport. You have to be careful of what you're doing in there. And I love seeing swimmers gain the respect of the group. A new swimmer from another team or a young swimmer coming up, and you just see it, right? A lot of the kids will be quiet with that kid, but eventually then you see them being accepted because, yes, they did the 1500s and they didn't stop, right? And all of a sudden you see that, you're one of us now. And I love that about swimming. So that's something that all swimmers, good and not so good swimmers, can get out of the sport. So overall, in general, that's what I sort of take away from it. My kids, I'm glad that they swam for a while before they moved on to what they did. But I don't know, is that...
Yeah, that's great.
And just about parents, I remember talking to a lot of you coaches, you'd say, check this out about this parent. You'd go on and we all commiserate about something. And I'd always say to them, especially some of the older coaches, I go, yeah, but are they in your top 10? And they go, ooh, I got to think about that. No, not my top 10, but, somebody would say, yeah, they're in my top 10, legit. Like I go, ooh, that's not good. Because when you've been coaching, thousands of kids and more thousands of parents, if they're in your top 10, that's doing something, right? Yeah. And I've always been lucky just through hook or crook in Cambridge. I always had good boards, good enough that at least we got through to the next year. And, I felt that they were helping us out.
Yeah.
It was awesome. And just one thing that I ended up doing with parents, not so much that it was becoming so terrible, but for the last few years, I would have a meeting with my parents of my group and say, do you have any questions about what I'm going to do this year? Here's sort of the general plan. We sort of go over it. And I would spend a long time with the parents answering any questions they had. And then at the end of that meeting, I would say, okay, I don't really want to see you anymore. I don't want to have any contact with you anymore. And I was serious about that. I say, I want everything to come from your swimmer. And this is, my group was 14 and over, right? So I said, if there's anything that you need to tell me, work it through your kid. And if they feel it's important, then yeah, I'll do it. But I really don't want to have anything to do with you anymore. And they were so good about that. I mean, you know, if the kid's got a real problem and I got to talk to them, that's fine. And if they're on the board, I'll deal with them. But overall, I had a really good success with just saying, you tell me through your kid if something needs to be said. And I think it helps the kid to give them a little agency over their own career. And it also helped me because I just found like just the noise from the parents went way down. I didn't have to worry about that at all. So it is something that I tried that seemed to work for me.
So thanks, Ron. As he was talking there, I was trying to remember the number of times you said to me, are they in your top 10? Because there was, I think, more than 10 times probably.
And I think it's kind of neat because you're honest with yourself. You say, no, they're really not.
Yeah.
They're not in my top 10, right? Because my top 10 is going to be hard to dislodge, right?
Yeah. We're going to go down the dais again, and I'll start with you, Al. It's great. We have those moments in our coaching career, and we talked a bit about sort of maybe some of the negative angle of the stuff that you deal with as coaches, but just talk to me a bit about a significant moment that maybe was a springboard for you as a coach, like that sort of either moved you to a different level or made you see your program in a different way or a swimmer in a different way.
There is one moment in time, instant, that I'll never forget. It was the most exciting time, but I'm going to get back to that. Okay, maybe I'll tell you right now. The most exciting time for me was at the 2008 Olympic trials. And the 200 back final for women is coming up that night. And so we're getting warmed up, and I'm doing some pace work with my athlete. And I'm walking down the side of the pool with my stopwatch, and I'm watching, and I'm going, whoa, this is way too slow, way too slow. And she finishes up the 50, and she hits the 50, and I looked at my watch, and I went, holy shit, that was easy. She's going to win. And that's the moment I knew she was going to win. Now, she didn't win for another hour or whatever it was, and I didn't tell her at that moment in time, but I talked to her about how efficient she was and how well she was doing. And then it was time for her to go to the ready room, and I just said to her, do your best and have fun. And she went off to the ready room, and she had to come back around the pool. Like, I'm right at the edge of the pool, about at the 25, and they're coming down, and her and another swimmer are dancing down the pool, coming to their race. And I lean over to her as she passes by, and I said, you can win. And she looked at me with this giant smile on her face. And then the race starts, and she takes the lead, and she's out in front, and she's coming down the fourth 50, the last 50, and all of a sudden she just in my mind, she stops and she sits up, and I'm like, Jesus, keep going. And she leans back and finishes the race, and she wins Olympic trials. And she comes back later, and I went, what the hell happened on that last 50? She said, I couldn't see anybody. I thought they had all stopped. And so that was by far the most exciting moment in my coaching career. But It was an ongoing thing for me. This conference, the Swim Ontario Conference, just about yearly made me rethink and change things in my program. I think I basically brought my whole full-time coaching staff. Is that right, Alf? We all came the entire time, every year, to this conference, and I think it was a huge thing for us as a coaching staff. The other thing I think that helped us was the dialogue we had. We had a weekly meeting, a coaching staff meeting in the office every single week. Well, basically, unless I was away on a tour somewhere or someplace for a week. But I think we had a coaches meeting every week where we could discuss things. And that was really very, very helpful as well. And I don't know that I admitted it to my staff, but I stole things from them all the time. Sorry, Alf, I didn't tell you. Anyway, does that cover the question?
Yeah, that's great. Cathy?
I don't know what the question was anymore.
around highlights, a key highlight, something that sort of propelled you forward.
Well, you know what? I will go back to something Ron said about getting the whole family involved. I did not get my family involved whatsoever. And it was to the point where even at Tokyo Olympics, my husband was asking, why do they swim all those different strokes in that event, that race? So I don't understand what this race is called. Like, what does IM mean? And I went, I did a good job. He knows nothing about swimming. So it gave me my break. But highlights, there are so many highlights within swimming, and we kind of knew ahead of time that we'd probably be asked about our highlights, and one of them is just simply the mentorship of young people is huge. And so many parents will come up and say, my kids will listen to you more than they'll listen to me. And it means that they value what you have to say. So be careful and wise in how you direct your conversation with them, and provide a safe environment for them to open up to you no matter what they want to discuss. So mentorship of young people is incredible. And the number of weddings that you get invited to, you have to start selecting. And then they start having children. And now some of them, their children are coming into the program where you started coaching. So it's pretty incredible with the mentorship component. Women in coaching has been huge for me over the last few years, and I'm really happy for the moment of really pushing it through in CSCA and getting mentorships out for them and mentoring some of the women coaches across the country myself. And there's a movement for that equality. But it's equality of all, equal opportunity for all. It's not take away from one to give to another, but it's equal across the board. So I'm happy to be able to give a voice for women to speak up and know their worth rather than waiting for it to come to them. And then, of course, Canada Summer Games was this last one. Canada Summer Games is bigger than what the title is. And yesterday, if you were in the talk, the whole Nunavut 2029 project that Olivier and Chris and I are working on is massive, about inclusivity and bringing it all together. And it's what it's about. It's about community, and it's about life skills, and it's about competitive drive. Everything is there for you. And it's up to us as coaches to lead that. So my pinnacle moment probably hasn't even come yet in coaching. And my coaching has phased from actively coaching young people to going into more of mentorship and building. So that's where I'm going.
Okay, thanks. Andrew?
Certainly lots of defining moments, but this is actually pretty easy for me. It would be 1993, a 12-year-old boy walks onto the pool deck of the London Aquatic Club named Adam Pardy. and changed the trajectory of my coaching career, as you know, you're probably all aware. So, and I just feel that did change my coaching career. Adam was the first para swimmer that I worked with. Obviously went on to a tremendous career. Dart is sitting over there, going into the Ontario Aquatic Hall of Fame tonight. Just those are two of the great athletes I got to work with in the sport of para swimming. Changed my perspective on a lot of things. Made me realize that relationships come before results. And it doesn't matter how many arms or how many legs the kids have, how fast they are, whether their top meet is going to be the regional championships or the Olympic Games or the Paralympic Games. You have to establish relationships. I got the opportunity to travel the world and meet a lot of great coaches and work with a lot of great coaches and work with a lot of great athletes. And it made me a better coach in every respect.
That's great. So I guess I have two more questions for the group as a whole, and the first one is this transition for all of you is probably large in terms of making the decision to either step back or step away, and I wonder what was the catalyst of those decisions, and I would imagine that you're all going to say, you know, it was just time, and I'm sure we would accept that as an answer, but I'm sure there's got to be something that was a catalyst for making the decision to move away from something you've done for 30 plus, 40 plus years. Andrew?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. Like COVID was a factor for sure. And we all mourn the loss of some of our tremendous colleagues and friends over the last couple of years. And I really, it was a real shock to me, as I'm sure it was to all of you, that, mortality is a real thing. And I kind of said when COVID broke in March of 2020, well, if I can help get the London Aquatic Club through the other side of this in a good spot, I think that might be the greatest legacy I can boast of in my coaching career. So I think we're through it. Life intervenes. My mom passed away. She's 87. She passed away in March. My dad's on his own now at 89. So, I've turned 60. It's 30 years with the London Aquatic Club. There were just some numbers that were popping for me that made me realize, and as Ron said, it's a 168-hour-a-week job, isn't it, you guys? I guess you could take the hours that you're sleeping out of it, but we even dream about swimming when we're sleeping. So, it's 168 hours a week. And if you can't give it everything you've got for all of those hours, then, I kind of felt like I couldn't give my swimmers, who certainly deserve it, I couldn't give them my very best energy and my very best attention all the time anymore. So it did feel like time to me, but there were factors at play that made the decision, while very hard, certainly I feel good about it.
So very similar, but mine happened pre-COVID, and it started with the death of my son. So, that's an emotional time. It's like 5 years ago, but yeah. So one saying I heard yesterday on the radio, excuse the emotion, I haven't cried like this in an instant in a long time. And the phrase was so profound, and I went, yes, that is the life lesson. That is the life moment. And it said, what's your focus in the peak of chaos? And we have so many peaks of chaos. And the illness of my son was 8 months long. And I continued to coach all the hours that you do in coaching. And I attended 36 appointments a week with him between coaching. And it was only until he got his terminal diagnosis that I went, I'm out. What am I doing? And there was so much going on at the time. And at the time, Sean was ill, and he's going through kidney transplant, getting ready for that. And my son had died. And there was just a lot happening, so much chaos. And it drove me to focus on what I needed to focus on. And that was me. And I did a solo road trip. Amazing. best thing I could have ever done because it gave such clarity without interference. And I knew I was going to row, and I told them, I'm not here long term. I'm only here to get you on the road to moving forward again. And COVID came down, and again, I got the life lesson of what's my focus in chaos. And really and truly, it's time to focus on life and my own personal enjoyment of life. And we bought property, we started building a house, and I found that I left morning practice, drove for almost 2 hours up to Meaford by Georgian Bay, and I would just walk the property and go, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is filling me. And there was no chaos there. And then I would drive 2 hours back down for afternoon practice, right? But you take those little bits of time that you have and find what fills your cup. And COVID just said, it's time. My son said, it's time. And Meaford says, it's time.
So I coached in 3 different places. And so I had 2 transitions from club to club and then 1 transition out of coaching. So my first transition, I was at Rowe. Clifford didn't rehire me for the next year, and I moved on. I moved to Windsor. And so when I was in Windsor, to make a long story short, I was at this is a story that you said maybe I shouldn't tell, but I'm going to tell it anyway.
All right, go for it.
Okay.
Put your seatbelts on, folks.
Okay. So the head coach, I was an assistant coach. The head coach was at Canada Cup, I think, or something like that in Toronto. And so I took the Windsor Aquatic Club into Michigan to a swim meet. And so I was there all day long. In the morning, the young kids, the morning session ran into the afternoon warm-up. I hadn't been to the washroom. I hadn't gotten anything to eat. So the older kids come in. I tell them what the warm-up is. I said, I got to go. I'll be back as soon as I can. So I run to the washroom. I run down to the cafeteria, get a hot dog, and I sit down to eat my hot dog. And the president of the Windsor Aquatic Club comes up behind me and says, don't you think you should be on deck? I thought he was knowledgeable. So I thought it was a joke. So I kind of turned and went, yeah, I guess I should be. It wasn't a joke. We were in a room this size. All the parents and coaches are in there eating, and he turned red in the face and starts screaming at me. Crown attorney in Windsor was his job. Anyway, he's screaming at me. And so I stand up, and he sucker punches me right there in the middle of the room with all the parents and everything. I decided it was time to move on. Should have sued the bastard, but anyway. Oh, excuse me. Anyway, that was my second transition. There's more to the story, but that was the main part of it. I went right back to the deck and coached the afternoon session. And anyway, then I was in a Newmarket for 34 years, and my wife and I had talked about, retirement. When do you think we should retire? Whatever. Probably for a year or going on over a year. And, we every once in a while would bring it up and talk about it. But Murray Drudge died. And 2 days later, I announced my retirement to the club, and that was the last straw. I was absolutely devastated. I could hardly get out of bed in the morning. It was just one of the hardest things. He was virtually my age. I mean, we were born virtually the same time, and I went, I had already gone through, since 1990, physical problems. Some of you know that I have nerve damage and no calf muscle in my left leg, and I have loss of muscle in my right leg, and was on crutches and canes and stuff. So physically, but mentally, I was struggling with all the hours and everything. But that was the last straw. And then the second punch was Kevin, but anyway, that was the last straw. Was Murray. I announced my retirement mid-February, not knowing we were going to get locked out in the middle of March, and I look back and go, it was the right time to do it.
And when you made the decision to announce your retirement, as I'm sure she did for a lot of years, what did Avril say?
Well, I believe Murray died on a Monday. It was a Wednesday night. I'm getting ready to go to my board meeting. We had been discussing it. I went to the front door and put my shoes on and said, Av, she was still in the kitchen. She said, yeah. I said, I'm going to announce my retirement tonight. And she said, good for you. And that was the end of it. Yeah.
Support.
She didn't announce hers for a couple months after that, but anyway.
So she didn't go like quitter or anything like that.
She didn't go, I quit. No.
Ron, how about you?
Well, I guess COVID was not good. Like it just, I getting on in years anyway, and then COVID, theoretically probably coached less, but it was awful. Like you realize what I really enjoyed is just being with the kids in the moment. Just I don't care if they're good or not, just enjoying them for who they are and trying to get to know them. And, obviously we're wired to get them to swim faster, but it's just enjoying the kids, and not being able to do that in the same way was difficult. So that kind of hastened my decision to not do it, so it was tough. But the COVID restrictions were terrible. I mean, we tried our best, right? We all tried our best, but it was very different. We have a place up north that we love. My wife retired a few years ago, and basically I can't get her away from there. So she lives there pretty much full time. And, she's a really good cook. So I would like to be up there a little more. We have a place down in Cambridge that, the boys hang out, and I go down and I coach a little bit just to help out. And be with the kids. That's my excitement, is just to, I just love to rip the kids so hard, the teenage kids, right? I just love getting on their case, bugging them. What are you doing still here? I thought you were retired already. Just love bugging them and giving them a rough time, just asking them about school and everything, and, what their dreams are, and just swimmers in general, just awesome people, right? Just so good. So you miss that. And I didn't want to totally not do that. So I get to do that a little bit. So that's fun. But I have other interests. I still have enough health that I can be physical. I like to do a lot of physical activities, and I like to sort of be on a little more of my own schedule. So that's kind of my, COVID thing for sure, like Andrew said, and just, have other interests. And so I'm on to that, but also can't quite get away from it yet. I'm still with CSCA board as well, but I love the look on the kids' faces when they see me that I'm there, especially the first practice they had this year. Trevor was at another pool doing tryouts. So the first practice that my kids that I've had for years, I open up the door to let them in, and the look of disappointment on their face. Like you can't mask that. I open the door, and just oh my God, what are you? Oh, hi, Ron. They're just so disappointed to see me, because they're excited to see Trevor, right? Trevor's young, and he's 10 times nicer than me, and he's so much more than I can do in coaching, and they just see the old guy is still there. And it's like, I almost was going to say, surprise, I'm back. I didn't retire, but I thought that might be a little too much for them. But I just love just hanging around the kids. That's one of the things that I think I would miss, but I do not miss the morning practices. I don't miss, some of the 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night stuff that you have to do. I will not miss swim meets. I remember one swim meet I went to, Tomac, like you said. 4-day meet, starts at 7, and they ran great meets back then. Starts at 7, ends at 10 at night, no breaks. Literally no breaks. Like at Etobicoke would just hammer it. The nice thing is they ran a good meet, so you'd feel like things are moving, but goodness sakes, like, you know, will not miss that. So I'm looking forward to sort of being a little selfish and doing some of the things for me.
Playing good quality golf, I would imagine.
Sort of more like hockey.
Yeah, oh, jeepers. There we go.
Yeah.
Throughout this, you've all sort of dropped little nuggets of inspiration, I think, and sort of some key takeaways. But I'll give you a chance at sort of, if you had one piece of advice for the young coaches in the room, what would it be?
Well, for me, it would be just like I was talking about when I was a younger coach, you know, how do I get my kids to be at the national level? How do I do this? How do I do that? You know, how do I make more money coaching? Good luck with that. And, you know, just things in your mind that you want to get done, where now the last few years, I just enjoyed the kids, just enjoyed being with them, you know, and talking to them as a group at the beginning and saying, you're in now, you're accepted, you're one of us. You know, we're here, and go forward with that. And so that's kind of my bit of information for young coaches. Enjoy those kids because they're awesome. And the other bit of advice I would give to young coaches is spend a lot of money on a good pair of sandals when you're on deck. Don't go with the garbage flip-flops because your knees will thank you in about 30 years.
My advice would be take care of yourself. Make sure you realize that you and your family come first. This is something that I missed. And so I haven't really been pain-free since 1990, and I could have been. And with the number of hours I put in, I would have extreme burnout by the beginning of June every year, where a molehill would become a mountain. Any small decisions became incredibly difficult, and the only reason was because I didn't take care of myself. I thought I was Superman. Still do, but I thought I was Superman. I thought I could coach 17 hours a week, every day of the week for so many weeks. But you got to take care of yourself. Take a nap, even if you don't need to take a nap, if you have a chance to. But physically take care of yourself. I've been able to lean down a little bit since I stopped coaching, and I feel way better. It took me, I'm not sure I'm 100% recovered, but it's been over 2 years, and I think I'm pretty close to recovered now. It takes a long, long, long time to recover from what at least I did. And I don't know, I can't speak for all of you, but take care of yourself.
We're all kind of in the same line of what we want to offer up to you for advice. In order to do the take care of yourself, make sure you instill a good team around you, because that allows you to take the day off, or it allows you to take a weekend off, or it allows you to have another coach be able to coach your athlete at a swim meet. So that's the part that you really need to work on in order to truly take care of yourself. Have the confidence to speak up. So many times we just swallow it and not say anything, but have the confidence to speak up and know when to say no to requests of you. Because we can always be the yes man or yes woman, yes person, but you're not taking care of yourself by loading your plate so full that you fail at the tasks you take. So be prepared to say no and do a really good job at the things you say yes to.
Very wise. I already mentioned it, but I'll paraphrase it even more by saying it doesn't matter what's written on the whiteboard. It doesn't matter what's written on the whiteboard. And Dean Bowles wrote that on a whiteboard at a camp we were on, I don't know, 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And I just started to realize that a couple of years ago. You have to have the relationships. If you want the results, you have to have the relationships first. The gold medals at the swim meet, the team ranking at the swim meet, the club records, the Canadian records, that's all icing. The relationships have to come before the results.
Alan, yeah.
That's something that I didn't mention. Cathy brought it up was the thing that kept me most excited about swimming through all the years was I had a decent board early on, but I had a great coaching staff. And, Sam Shalofsky pretty much took care of the 10 and unders, and Caroline Teskey had some 10-year-olds and the 11 and 12-year-olds, and Ulf Ornhelm sitting here had the 13 and 14-year-olds, and we I don't know that this is true, but I felt we had the best coaching staff in the province, and great things came out of that. And that's probably the thing that I'm most thankful for in coaching, was that we built a great coaching staff. And so thank you, Ulf. And I'd like to thank Caroline and Sam, who aren't here right now, but we worked really, really well together. And, and that's where Lindsay came from. That's where Matthew and Jeffrey came from. And all the most successful people that we had in our club were, for the most part, in our club at 6 years old. Yes, we had a couple of drop-ins, but for the most part, Newmarket's, well, Mike Gergel used to say anything north of number 7 is the far north. So we were in the far north. And, yeah, thank you to my coaching staff over the years.
So at this point, and we'll get to the wrap-up point, but is there any questions from the floor for the coaches?
Well, while you're thinking of that,
Okay.
Stu didn't allow me to give you my highlight. One of my highlights of my coaching career was when Maggie McNeil was in World Championships, seeded. What was she seeded going into the final? 8th. What was she seated in at the Olympics?
She's in lane 7.
She's in lane 7. And it wasn't my swimmer, but it's my buddy, right? And I felt, I just hope she doesn't come last. I just hope that she does half decent in my mind. I'm not telling him that. And she wins it. That was so exciting. So exciting to see somebody win. Like, the guy, right? So that was pretty exciting. That was my highlight.
Thanks, Ron.
Was that not a highlight for you?
Buddy, that was a highlight.
All right.
Yeah. So I, as well as a lot of you, have had the great pleasure of sharing the pool deck with these 4, playing golf with some of them, watching Craven break down as the Leafs break down every year. He might be the only one that still believes they're going to win the Stanley Cup in his lifetime. But as Dean had handed this off to me, the one thing that stuck in my mind, because we live in a society now where people try to be original. They spend time on social media trying to be original. And I'm a fan of the podcast Smartless, because I'm not very bright and it's pretty straightforward. And I was listening to one the other day, and I think it was Ethan Hawke, the actor, said something, and I was thinking of a way to kind of encompass these 4 people, and I think it probably encompasses the people who do this job day to day, and it's being your most authentic self will make you original. And there's never a moment where I've had interaction with Alan or Ron or Cathy or Andrew where I never thought they were being authentic. there's probably not 4 more honest people in the world that you deal with when you go to ask for advice. If you need to laugh, Ron Campbell's always got a story, always has a story. It's an honor to have coached with you and to have spent the time here today with you. So thank you very much.
No questions?
No
Just
que-
remember, guys, swimmers and parents come and go. Coaches remain the same, right? So support each other, whatever club you're at. Ask the questions, build each other up. We may go about it in a different way, but we're all looking for that successful outcome for every one of our athletes, whether it be on this stage in performance or this stage in life.
Yeah, these are the people that have so much in common with you, right? And I've never had any coach that you ask a question, don't give you an honest answer, right? So, you look at some of these coaches, just go up and, at a swim meet, if they're not busy, just say, hey, what do you do in this situation? They'll tell you.
Yeah. So one last call for questions. And, yeah.
It's not a question, it's just something that Cathy said very early on in this panel. There's a comment about how board members like to view themselves as volunteers, and I take real exception to that. That really pisses me off when I hear that, because all of you are not volunteers. And when I get into a meeting, I started meeting off at the beginning of the year, and I said, all of you board members, you have a fiduciary duty to the club. Want yourselves, take your parent hats off. I hate when I hear that. So it's a good reminder to keep pushing that message forward. You may be volunteers, but you're not. And these are your careers, and they're critical, and they are the glue of the club. Thank you for bringing that up.
Okay. Pierre.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. Sean.
I was just going to say, I'm not going to say what I want to say to this point, but I want to say our province is weaker without you. Thank you for everything you've done. I really appreciate having spent that much time with Mom and everybody else. I really enjoyed my time with you. Thank you.
I feel like I'm Forrest Gump up here with these 3 superstars. I'm just a guy, right? Like these 3 are actually coaches. So
Yeah, you're just.